The laughter started before the first plate even left the kitchen. Not because the food looked bad. Not because anything had gone wrong. The guests were laughing at her. Sophia Bennett stood behind the stainless steel counter, her white chef's jacket stretched slightly across her curvy frame, a few loose strands of chestnut hair escaping from beneath her cap. She kept her eyes on the sizzling pan in front of her, pretending not to hear the whispers drifting in from the dining room. "She's the head chef? I thought they hired models for open kitchens. Maybe she eats more than she cooks." Another burst of laughter rolled across the restaurant. Sophia tightened her grip on the spatula. Not enough to shake, just enough to remind herself she still had control. She had learned years ago that some people judged with their eyes before they ever tasted with their mouths. Tonight, she prayed the food would speak louder than the cruelty. The restaurant was called Luna Bianca, one of the city's newest fine dining destinations. It wasn't the largest, it wasn't the most expensive, but it had become famous almost overnight because of one thing: its food. Every signature dish carried Sophia's fingerprints. Every handmade sauce, every slow-braised cut of meat, every dessert that looked too beautiful to eat. Guests praised the cuisine online without ever knowing who stood behind the stove. Until tonight, the owner had decided to renovate the restaurant into an open kitchen concept, convinced customers would love watching the chefs at work. He had imagined applause. Instead, his guests found someone easier to entertain than the menu. A waiter hurried into the kitchen. "Sophia." She didn't look up. "Table 12, sent back the appetizers." She frowned. "They didn't even taste them." "I know. They said..." The waiter hesitated. Sophia finally met his eyes. "What did they say?" He looked uncomfortable. "They said they'd rather eat somewhere that hires chefs who look healthier." Silence. Only the soft hiss of butter melting in the pan filled the room. Sophia nodded once. "I'll make them again." "You don't have to." "I know." She carefully plated the appetizers anyway. "Take them out." The waiter looked confused. "They'll probably refuse." "Then they can refuse after tasting them." She had spent 15 years becoming the kind of chef who never argued with hunger. Food deserved a chance, even if people didn't. Across the dining room, the table of 6 wealthy guests watched the waiter approach. One man smirked. "Look, she's sending another plate." His wife laughed. "Persistence is admirable." Another woman leaned forward. "I still can't believe she's the chef." The waiter placed the dishes carefully on the table. "Our chef would appreciate it if you simply tasted one bite." "We're not interested." "One bite." "No." The waiter remained calm. "Then there will be no charge." That caught their attention. The man picked up his fork with exaggerated reluctance. "Fine. One bite." He cut into the perfectly seared scallop. The golden crust cracked softly beneath his knife. A thin ribbon of citrus beurre blanc clung to the edge. He took a bite. Silence. The smirk disappeared. His wife noticed first. "Well?" He didn't answer. Instead, he took another bite, then another. Without realizing it, he finished the entire plate. The table grew strangely quiet. One by one, the others reached for their own forks. Within minutes, every appetizer was gone. Not a single word remained about Sophia's appearance, only empty plates. The waiter smiled to himself before returning to the kitchen. They loved it. Sophia simply nodded. "I'm glad." She didn't ask if they apologized. She already knew the answer. At the far end of the restaurant, a black luxury sedan rolled silently to a stop. No flashing lights. No unnecessary spectacle. 3 men stepped out first, dressed in perfectly tailored black suits. Their eyes swept the street with practiced precision. Then, the rear door opened. A tall man emerged. Dark charcoal overcoat, black suit beneath, broad shoulders, calm gray eyes that missed very little. His name was Adrian Moretti. Officially, he owned investment firms, hotels, shipping companies, and restaurants across 3 continents. Unofficially, few people dared speculate how he had built such an empire. Those who knew never discussed it in public. He entered Luna Bianca without announcing himself. The hostess recognized him immediately. Her smile faltered. "Mr. Moretti." He nodded politely. "Table? We've prepared the private room." "No." He glanced toward the open dining room. "I'll sit here." She looked surprised. Of course. No one questioned his decision. People rarely questioned Adrian Moretti. Sophia never noticed him arrive. The dinner rush had begun. Orders flooded into the kitchen. Steaks, sea bass, fresh pasta, risotto. Her team moved like a well-rehearsed orchestra. She led them with quiet confidence. No panic. 2 more minutes on table 7. Butter first. Not too much salt. Every instruction came gently, never shouted, never cruel. The younger cooks adored working beside her because she corrected mistakes without humiliating anyone. That kindness made tonight's ridicule sting even more. One of the line cooks glanced toward the dining room. "They're still staring." Sophia smiled faintly. "Then, let's give them something worth staring at." The kitchen laughed. The tension eased. For a little while. At Adrian's table, the maitre d' personally delivered the tasting menu. "Our finest selections, sir." Adrian looked down, then quietly closed the menu. "Who designed tonight's menu?" "Our executive chef." "The woman in the kitchen?" "Yes." The maitre d' hesitated. "Chef Sophia Bennett." Adrian looked through the glass partition into the brightly lit kitchen. Sophia was completely focused. She hadn't looked toward the dining room once. Interesting. Most chefs performing in an open kitchen couldn't stop checking whether guests were watching. She seemed to have forgotten anyone existed beyond the next plate. Marco, Adrian's longtime security chief, leaned slightly closer. "Something wrong?" Adrian shook his head. "No." Then added quietly, "I'd like whatever she believes represents her best work." The maitre d' smiled. "I'll let her know." "No." Adrian stopped him. "Don't." "Why not, sir? I want the same meal every other guest receives." If excellence depended on recognition, it wasn't excellence. The order reached the kitchen without revealing the customer's identity. Sophia read the ticket. Chef's choice. Table 21. She smiled. Her favorite kind of request. "No expectations," she whispered. "Only trust." She reached into the refrigerator and selected the freshest ingredients herself. Wild sea bass, charred heirloom tomatoes, saffron broth, lemon oil, fresh basil picked barely an hour earlier. Every movement became slower, more deliberate. The rest of the kitchen faded into the background. Cooking had always been the one place where the world stopped judging. Ingredients didn't care what she looked like. Fire didn't care. Flavor certainly didn't. Only people did. Several minutes later, the plate reached Adrian's table. No elaborate decorations. No gold leaf. No unnecessary theatrics. Just beautiful food. Steam curled upward. The aroma of roasted herbs drifted through the air. Marco quietly reached for his fork. Adrian raised one finger. Marco stopped immediately. Adrian always tasted first. Not because he distrusted others, because responsibility, in his world, began with him. He picked up his fork, cut into the sea bass. The flesh separated effortlessly. He lifted a single bite. The entire restaurant continued moving around him. Waiters crossed the floor. Glasses clinked. Conversations blended together. Sophia called out another order from the kitchen. Then, Adrian tasted it. His expression didn't change. Not immediately. He simply closed his eyes for one brief second. The flavors unfolded one after another. Delicate, balanced, confident. Nothing shouted. Nothing begged for attention. The dish trusted itself. Very few people cooked with that kind of restraint. Adrian slowly placed the fork back onto the plate. Marco watched carefully. "Sir?" Adrian stood. Without saying another word, without finishing the meal, he walked directly toward the open kitchen. Every conversation inside the restaurant began to fade. Guests turned their heads. Waiters stopped mid-step. The owner hurried across the dining room, convinced something had gone terribly wrong. Sophia looked up just as Adrian reached the counter. She immediately assumed the worst. "I'm sorry. If something isn't to your liking, I'll remake it." Adrian looked at her for several quiet seconds. Then, without speaking, he picked up her tasting spoon from the counter, scooped another bite from his own plate, and held it out toward her. The entire restaurant froze. Sophia blinked in confusion. "What are you doing?" His answer was calm, almost gentle. "Taste it." She frowned. "I made it." "I know." "Then why?" "Because." He finally allowed the faintest hint of a smile. "I think everyone in this room deserves to see the face of the woman who just cooked the finest meal they've ever tasted." Around them, the same guests who had laughed at Sophia only minutes earlier slowly lowered their eyes. Not one of them dared speak. Silence settled over Luna Bianca like a heavy curtain. No glasses clinked. No quiet conversations drifted through the dining room. Even the kitchen seemed to stop breathing. Sophia looked at the spoon Adrian still held in front of her. Then she looked at him. "I don't understand." "You don't have to." His voice was calm. "Taste it." She hesitated for a moment before taking the spoon. The sea bass was still warm. Exactly as she intended. The broth carried just enough saffron. The lemon oil brightened the finish without overpowering it. She smiled faintly. "It came out the way I hoped." Adrian gave a single nod. "I know." The owner hurried toward them, his face pale. "Mr. Moretti, if there's any issue with the meal, we'll—" "There isn't." The owner blinked. "I'm sorry?" Adrian turned toward the dining room. "There is no issue with the food." His gray eyes drifted across the guests who had spent the evening mocking Sophia. "The issue is everyone else." No one laughed this time. At table 12, the same businessman who had mocked Sophia stared at his empty appetizer plate. His wife shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should." "Should what?" He muttered. "Apologize." He looked toward Sophia. For the first time, he truly saw her. Not the chef's jacket stretched across her figure. Not the shape of her body. Just the woman who had quietly cooked a meal so good he had forgotten his own prejudice. He slowly stood. The entire restaurant watched. Sophia wished he wouldn't. She hated becoming the center of attention. He walked to the open kitchen. The words caught in his throat. "I owe you an apology." Sophia blinked. "You judged me before tasting my food." "I did. And I was wrong." His voice was sincere. "I've eaten in restaurants all over Europe." He looked at Adrian briefly. "That appetizer was extraordinary." Sophia smiled gently. Sophia smiled gently. "Thank you. I don't deserve your kindness." "Maybe not." She shrugged softly. "But kindness isn't something I give only to people who deserve it." The man lowered his eyes. For reasons he couldn't explain, that sentence embarrassed him more than any public humiliation could have. Adrian watched without interrupting. Marco leaned slightly closer. "You planned this?" "No." "You seem unsurprised." Adrian looked toward Sophia. "Good people often make others uncomfortable." "Why?" "They force us to compare ourselves." Marco quietly nodded. He understood. The dinner service continued. Guests gradually returned to their conversations. But something had changed. People no longer whispered about Sophia's appearance. Instead, they pointed toward the dishes leaving the kitchen. "What is she making now?" "Can we order what table 21 had?" "I want the chef's recommendation." Orders doubled within 20 minutes. The kitchen erupted into controlled chaos. One young cook laughed nervously. "Chef, I think we're famous. Sophia tied her apron a little tighter. We're busy. That's all. She never chased recognition, only excellence. Meanwhile, Adrian remained seated. He ordered nothing else. Instead, he quietly watched the rhythm inside the kitchen. Every movement revealed something. Sophia corrected mistakes without raising her voice. She plated every dish herself before it left the pass. When a dishwasher accidentally dropped an entire tray of clean plates, he froze in terror. I'm sorry. I'll pay for them. Sophia immediately walked over. With what? My salary. She smiled. Then we'd both go hungry. The young man looked confused. She picked up a broom. Come on. We'll clean together. Within seconds, half the kitchen staff joined her. No blame. No shouting. Only teamwork. Adrian noticed. Most leaders inspired obedience. Very few inspired loyalty. Sophia never realized she was being studied. She simply believed no one should feel small for making a mistake. An hour later, the final dessert left the kitchen. The rush was over. Applause suddenly echoed from somewhere inside the dining room. One table, then another. Soon, the entire restaurant was clapping. Sophia looked up in surprise. The applause wasn't for a celebrity. It wasn't for the owner. It was for the kitchen. More specifically, for her. She instinctively stepped backward. The attention made her uncomfortable. The owner gently nudged her shoulder. They're applauding you. I know. You should go. I'd rather stay here. The owner smiled. You've hidden behind these counters long enough. Slowly, Sophia walked into the dining room. The applause grew louder. Several guests stood. Others thanked her personally. One elderly woman reached out and squeezed Sophia's hand. My late husband loved food. He would have adored your cooking. Sophia's eyes softened. Thank you. The woman smiled warmly. And don't ever let people convince you that beauty has only one shape. Sophia swallowed hard. She had spent years pretending words like that didn't matter. Tonight, they did. As the last guests prepared to leave, a little girl wandered toward the open kitchen. She couldn't have been older than 7. She looked up at Sophia with wide eyes. Miss Chef? Sophia crouched to her level. Yes? My mommy says you're brave. Sophia laughed softly. Did she? The little girl nodded. She says some people are mean because they don't know better. Sophia smiled. Your mommy sounds very wise. The little girl held out a folded piece of paper. I drew you. Sophia unfolded it. A crayon drawing. A smiling chef wearing a tall white hat. Beside her stood another figure in a black coat. The little girl pointed proudly. That's the nice man. Sophia glanced across the room. Adrian was speaking quietly with Marco. She looked back at the drawing. Thank you. The little girl hugged her without warning, before running back to her parents. Sophia carefully folded the drawing and slipped it into her pocket. It was worth more than any review. Outside, rain began falling softly. Adrian prepared to leave. Before entering his car, he turned toward Marco. Find out everything. Marco smiled knowingly. About the chef? Adrian nodded once. Quietly. No pressure. No offers. Marco looked surprised. You don't want to recruit her? No. Why not? Adrian glanced through the restaurant window. Sophia was laughing with her staff while helping wipe down counters. People who love what they do shouldn't be interrupted. Marco nodded. I'll only observe. Adrian entered the car. The convoy pulled away. Inside the restaurant, Sophia finally removed her chef's jacket. Her shoulders ached. Her feet hurt. But her heart felt strangely light. The owner approached with 2 cups of coffee. You handled tonight better than I would have. I've had practice. I'm sorry. Sophia looked at him. For what? I should have stopped those guests sooner. She smiled gently. You did eventually. I should have done it before they hurt you. She looked down at her coffee. People have been saying things about my weight since I was 12. It stops hurting. She paused, then admitted honestly, no, it never really stops. The owner sighed. I don't deserve a chef like you. Sophia chuckled. Probably not. He laughed. Fair enough. Across the city, inside the back seat of the moving SUV, Marco opened the preliminary report. Her name is Sophia Bennett, 30 years old. Culinary Institute graduate, top of her class. Worked in France for 2 years. Returned home to care for her mother after a stroke. Adrian looked out the rain-covered window. Continue. No debts. No scandals. No criminal record. Marco turned another page. She sold her apartment 3 years ago to pay for her mother's medical treatment. Another page. She volunteers every Sunday teaching cooking at a youth shelter. Adrian remained silent. Marco reached the last document, then frowned. That's odd. What? Someone else has been investigating her. Adrian slowly turned his head. What do you mean? Marco handed him a photograph. It showed Sophia leaving the restaurant, taken from across the street, not by Moretti security. The timestamp was from 3 days earlier. Marco's voice became unusually serious. We didn't take this. The SUV fell completely silent. Adrian studied the image. Someone had already been watching Sophia, long before he walked into Luna Bianca. He quietly handed the photograph back, then gave only one instruction. Find out who. Miles away, inside a dimly lit office overlooking the harbor, a man watched the restaurant through a high-powered camera. He smiled as Adrian's convoy disappeared into the night. Then he placed another photograph onto his desk. It showed Sophia. Pinned beside it was Adrian Moretti. A red line connected both photographs. The man leaned back in his chair. So, he whispered, you finally noticed her. His smile slowly widened. Perfect. Rain continued to fall long after Luna Bianca closed its doors. The city shimmered beneath streetlights, every reflection stretching across the pavement like liquid gold. Sophia walked home alone, not because she enjoyed walking in the rain, because taking the bus meant spending money she preferred to save. Her backpack rested against one shoulder, still carrying the little girl's crayon drawing tucked carefully inside. She smiled every time she remembered it. Tonight had begun with humiliation. It had somehow ended with hope. She wasn't sure which part felt less believable. 2 blocks behind her, a black sedan rolled quietly through the rain. Not close enough to alarm her, not far enough to lose sight of her. Inside, 2 men watched through rain-speckled windows. The boss wants confirmation. The driver nodded. She's definitely the chef. And Moretti? He spoke to her. The passenger looked down at several photographs already spread across his lap. That's enough. He picked up his phone. Tell him the first step is complete. The call ended. The sedan turned onto another street. Sophia never knew it had been there. The next morning, the aroma of coffee filled a modest apartment on the 3rd floor of an aging brick building. Sophia stood in the tiny kitchen flipping pancakes while humming softly to herself. Across the table sat her mother, Evelyn Bennett, wrapped in a knitted cardigan despite the warm weather. The stroke 3 years earlier had weakened one side of her body, but it hadn't taken away her smile. You came home late. Sophia placed another pancake on her mother's plate. Busy night. I saw the restaurant online. Sophia paused. You did? Mrs. Henderson from downstairs showed me. Sophia laughed nervously. I hope she skipped the first half. Evelyn reached across the table and squeezed her daughter's hand. I didn't. Sophia lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. For what? You had to watch people laugh at me. Her mother smiled with quiet certainty. No. I watched my daughter stay kind. There is a difference. Sophia blinked quickly. She hated crying before work. It made her nose red. Her mother knew that, so she changed the subject. The pancakes are burning. Sophia gasped and turned toward the stove. Evelyn laughed. There she is, my chef. Across town. Marco entered Adrian's office carrying a thin black folder. You asked for everything. Adrian closed the document he had been reading. What did you find? Marco placed the folder on the desk. The surveillance photographs weren't random. They came from a private investigator. Hired by? Marco hesitated. We're still tracing the payment. Adrian opened the file. Inside were dozens of photographs. Sophia arriving at work. Sophia leaving the grocery store. Sophia teaching children at the shelter. Sophia visiting a rehabilitation clinic with her mother. Nothing illegal, nothing suspicious. Just a woman living her life. Adrian slowly closed the folder. Whoever hired this investigator wasn't looking for evidence. Marco nodded. They were studying her. Neither man liked that conclusion. Later that afternoon, Luna Bianca prepared for another fully booked evening. Sophia arrived carrying 2 containers of homemade soup. One for herself, one for the dishwasher who always skipped lunch to save money. She quietly placed the second container inside the break room refrigerator. No note. No announcement, just soup. 15 minutes later, the dishwasher found it. He smiled to himself. He knew exactly who had left it. She always pretended she hadn't. Around 6 o'clock, the restaurant owner hurried into the kitchen. Sophia. She looked up from trimming fresh herbs. Yes, we've been invited. Invited? The Black Diamond Charity Gala. She blinked. The one at the Grand Imperial Hotel? He nodded excitedly. They've asked us to prepare the signature dinner. Sophia nearly dropped her knife. That's enormous. I know. Why us? The owner grinned. Apparently someone highly influential recommended the restaurant. Sophia smiled. That's wonderful. Then she frowned. When is it? This Saturday. She mentally counted the days. Only 4. The entire kitchen erupted into excitement. A gala like that could change a restaurant forever. Sophia silently began rewriting the menu in her head. In another part of the city, Marco looked up from his tablet. The gala invitation. Adrian nodded. It arrived. Marco smiled knowingly. You recommended Luna Bianca. I recommended the food. Marco couldn't help laughing. Of course. You definitely didn't recommend the chef. Adrian returned to signing documents. I don't interfere with people's careers. Marco raised an eyebrow. No? No. You've already reserved an anonymous donation for the youth shelter where she volunteers. Adrian looked up. The shelter needs new ovens. Marco grinned. And the rehabilitation clinic. They need equipment. And her mother's medication fund. Adrian's expression remained perfectly calm. I don't know what you're talking about. Marco laughed quietly. After 12 years together, he knew exactly what that meant. 2 days later, preparations for the charity gala were underway. Sophia barely slept. She tested sauces until midnight, rejected desserts that tasted wonderful but didn't feel memorable enough. Every plate had to tell a story, not because wealthy donors expected perfection, because someone somewhere had trusted her restaurant with an opportunity it had never dreamed of receiving. She refused to waste it. Friday evening, as she left the restaurant carrying fresh ingredients, a voice called after her. Chef Bennett? She turned. A well-dressed man approached holding a leather briefcase. I'm Daniel Cross. I represent the Bellissimo Group. Sophia smiled politely. Can I help you? We're opening a luxury resort. We'd like to offer you the executive chef position. She blinked. I'm sorry? He handed her a folder. The salary starts at $300,000 annually. Sophia stared. That number alone could pay for years of her mother's treatment. Daniel smiled. You'd have complete creative freedom. She slowly closed the folder. That's incredibly generous. It is. But, she looked back toward Luna Bianca. I can't leave. Daniel frowned. May I ask why? She smiled. Because this kitchen believed in me before anyone else did. He seemed genuinely surprised. Most people wouldn't refuse this. I know. Will you at least think about it? I will. She wasn't lying. She would think about it. She simply doubted the answer would change. Across the street, someone photographed the entire conversation. The camera clicked 3 times, then disappeared. Saturday evening arrived. The Grand Imperial Hotel glittered beneath thousands of lights. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Politicians, business executives, celebrities, philanthropists. Everyone who mattered seemed to be there. Behind the scenes, Sophia tied her apron. Her cooks checked temperatures one last time. Everything was ready, or so she believed. The event coordinator suddenly rushed into the kitchen. Her face had lost all color. Chef, what happened? The guest of honor. Sophia frowned. Yes? He requested a menu change. Now? Immediately. Sophia looked at the printed schedule. The first course begins in 30 minutes. I know. The request comes directly from Mr. Moretti. Sophia paused. The man from the restaurant. Yes. What does he want changed? The coordinator swallowed nervously. He says, one of the guests has a severe shellfish allergy. Sophia immediately reached for her notebook. Then we'll redesign every course. The coordinator stared. Every course? If one ingredient puts someone in danger, nothing else matters. Without another question, she threw away nearly 6 hours of preparation, started over, and the kitchen followed without hesitation. No complaints, no panic, only trust. Upstairs, Marco looked toward Adrian. You never told anyone about the allergy. Adrian adjusted his cufflinks. I wasn't talking about myself. Marco frowned. Then who? Adrian looked across the ballroom. An elderly judge slowly entered with his granddaughter. The child carried an emergency medical bracelet. Her. Marco followed his gaze. Understanding dawned immediately. You changed the menu. For one little girl. Adrian nodded once. No child should spend the evening afraid of dinner. Marco smiled faintly. She'll never know. Adrian answered quietly. She doesn't need to. Downstairs, Sophia worked faster than she ever had in her life. Her team moved like a single heartbeat. 20 minutes later, the first course was ready. She exhaled slowly. We did it. A young cook laughed. Barely. Sophia smiled. Sometimes barely is enough. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the service corridor. Everyone turned. A waiter stumbled backward in shock. A man wearing a catering uniform had forced open the rear kitchen door. Sophia frowned. Can I help you? The stranger smiled. His eyes never reached his face. No. I'm looking. He slowly scanned the kitchen. For the chef. The kitchen fell unnaturally quiet. Only the soft bubbling of simmering stock broke the silence. The man in the catering uniform stood just inside the rear entrance, rainwater dripping from the edge of his cap onto the tiled floor. His uniform looked authentic. His smile did not. Sophia instinctively stepped forward. I'm the chef. The stranger looked at her for several long seconds, almost as though comparing her to a photograph stored somewhere in his memory. Then he smiled wider. I thought so. One of the sous chefs frowned. I've never seen you before. I'm with the evening supply team. No, you're not. The restaurant's kitchen manager immediately recognized the problem. We're not expecting deliveries. The stranger's expression never changed. My mistake. He tipped his cap politely. I must have the wrong kitchen. Without another word, he turned and walked away. The heavy metal door swung shut behind him. The silence remained. Sophia slowly exhaled. Strange. The kitchen manager immediately locked the rear entrance. Very. Across the service hallway. The man removed his catering cap. A small earpiece crackled. "Confirmed?" He answered quietly. "Confirmed. It's her." The voice on the other end replied, "Maintain distance. Do not engage." The man slipped into the crowd of hotel staff and disappeared, as though he had never existed. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers bathed hundreds of guests in warm golden light. A string quartet played softly near the stage. The first course arrived. Waiters moved with synchronized precision. No one realized the menu had been rewritten less than 30 minutes earlier. The elderly judge smiled after his first bite. His young granddaughter beamed. "This is safe?" The waiter nodded warmly. "Prepared especially for tonight." She smiled with visible relief and took another bite. Across the room, Adrian noticed. He said nothing. He simply continued eating. Marco leaned closer. The kitchen actually pulled it off. "I expected they would." Marco smiled. "You expected she would." Adrian didn't answer. He didn't need to. He had begun trusting Sophia long before she'd ever earned the chance to disappoint him. Back in the kitchen, the pressure had eased. The first course had been a success. Sophia allowed herself exactly 15 seconds to drink a glass of water before returning to work. One of the younger cooks laughed. "You know." "What?" "I think Mr. Moretti likes your food." Sophia smiled without looking up. "I think Mr. Moretti likes eating." The kitchen burst into laughter. Another cook added, "They say he's one of the richest men in the country." Sophia shrugged. "Money can't make risotto." "No, but it can buy a lot of it." She laughed. "Fair point." Meanwhile, Marco's phone vibrated. He stepped away from the ballroom. One of the security agents waited outside. "Sir, we've identified the man from the kitchen." Marco's expression sharpened. "And? He wasn't hotel staff." "I know that. We traced him to a catering company." "Real company?" "Yes. The uniform was stolen yesterday." Marco's voice grew quieter. "Where is he now?" The agent hesitated. "Gone. No cameras caught him leaving." Marco looked toward the ballroom, then toward the service corridors. He wanted to see Sophia. The agent nodded. "It appears so." Marco immediately called Adrian. Only 3 words. "Someone's watching her." Adrian slowly placed his fork on the table. His appetite disappeared. Dessert service began 40 minutes later. Sophia carried the final plated creation to the pass herself. Dark chocolate mousse, roasted cherries, vanilla bean ice cream, caramel shards so thin they shimmered under the lights. She smiled. This one is perfect." The head waiter nodded. "I'll take it." Just as he reached for the tray, Sophia frowned. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She leaned closer. The aroma. There was an unfamiliar scent, almost impossible to detect. But there, her smile vanished. "Don't move." The waiter froze. "What?" She picked up one dessert, smelled it again, then another. Only one plate carried the strange odor. She looked around the kitchen. Who touched this tray? Everyone exchanged confused glances. "I plated them." "So did I." "No one else." Sophia's pulse quickened. She dipped the tip of a silver spoon into the sauce. Not enough to taste. Only enough to observe. The color shifted slightly, almost invisible. She immediately pushed the tray away. "Nobody serves this." The kitchen manager frowned. "Why?" "I think." She took a careful breath. "Someone tampered with it." Silence. The words hit everyone at once. "What?" "I don't know with what. But I'm not risking it." The kitchen manager immediately grabbed his radio. "Stop dessert service." Waiters throughout the ballroom halted mid-step. Guests looked around in confusion. Upstairs, Marco received the message first. His hand moved instinctively toward his earpiece. Adrian looked at him. "What happened?" "The kitchen stopped service." "Reason?" They suspect food contamination. Adrian stood before Marco finished speaking. His chair slid backward across the marble floor. Several guests turned to watch. He ignored them completely. Without saying a word, he walked directly toward the kitchen. Sophia was already separating every ingredient used in the dessert. Her hands moved quickly, but calmly. The hotel's executive manager rushed in. "What are you doing?" "Protecting your guests." "You have evidence?" "Not yet." "Then resume service." "No." His face hardened. "You'll embarrass this hotel." Sophia looked him directly in the eye. "I'd rather embarrass the hotel than bury a child." The room fell silent. The manager took a threatening step forward. "You realize this decision could destroy your career." Sophia didn't move. "If I'm wrong, I'll accept every consequence. But if I'm right," she looked toward the ballroom, "someone out there goes home alive." No one spoke. At that exact moment, Adrian entered the kitchen. His eyes immediately found Sophia. She stood alone, between hundreds of guests, and a dessert she refused to serve. He quietly asked, "What happened?" Sophia answered honestly, "I think someone poisoned one plate." The executive manager scoffed. "She has no proof." Adrian didn't even look at him. Instead, he turned toward Marco. "Seal the kitchen." Marco nodded immediately. The executive manager protested. "You can't just—" Adrian interrupted with a single glance. The man fell silent. Within seconds, security officers closed every entrance. No one entered. No one left. Sophia stared at Adrian. "You believe me?" "I believe." He picked up the suspicious dessert, held it beneath his nose, then placed it back down untouched. That experienced chefs notice things other people don't. Sophia swallowed. "Thank you." He gave one short nod. "No one eats until we know." 30 minutes later, the laboratory technician assigned to the gala arrived carrying portable testing equipment. The ballroom buzzed with nervous conversations. Sophia waited silently. Her hands were clasped tightly together, not because she feared being wrong, because if she was right, someone had deliberately tried to kill a guest. The technician looked up from the testing kit. His face had gone completely pale. "Chef." Sophia's heartbeat stopped. "What is it?" He slowly removed his gloves. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "There was poison." Every sound inside the kitchen disappeared. The technician looked around the room before finishing his sentence. And judging by the concentration, the intended victim would never have survived the first bite. The technician's words echoed through the kitchen. The intended victim would never have survived the first bite. No one moved. The ovens continued humming. Steam curled from simmering pots. Yet the room felt frozen. Sophia stared at the dessert on the stainless steel counter as though it had become something alive. Only minutes earlier, she had almost sent it into the ballroom. If she hadn't trusted her instincts, someone would already be dying. She closed her eyes. A quiet tremor passed through her hands, not from fear, from the realization of how close she had come to carrying a burden she could never have forgiven herself for. The executive manager slowly lowered himself into a chair. His face had turned ghostly white. I accused you." Sophia looked at him. "You did. I almost ordered the desserts served." "You did." His shoulders slumped. "I owe you an apology." Sophia nodded gently. "Accepted." He blinked. "Just like that?" She offered him a tired smile. "We don't have time to stay angry. We have a criminal to find." Adrian watched the exchange without saying a word. Once again, she chose compassion when resentment would have been easier. It wasn't weakness. It was discipline. Marco was already issuing orders. Lock every service entrance. No one leaves the hotel. Review every camera, every hallway, every loading dock. Security teams spread through the Grand Imperial within seconds. The ballroom had become strangely quiet. Rumors traveled faster than facts. Some guests whispered about spoiled food. Others suspected a gas leak. Only a handful knew the truth. Adrian intended to keep it that way. Panic helped no one. He turned toward the technician. The poison? A fast-acting neurotoxin. Rare. Not something an ordinary person could obtain. Marco frowned. Targeted? The technician nodded. Definitely. It was mixed into only one dessert. Sophia looked at the tray. There were 200 plates. So whoever did this knew exactly which one they wanted. A chill settled over the room. This had never been random. Someone had planned every detail. An hour later, security footage began arriving in the hotel's control room. Marco studied screen after screen. Kitchen entrance, ballroom corridor, service elevators, loading dock. Then, there, one technician froze the image. The man wearing the stolen catering uniform. His face remained partially hidden beneath a cap. He entered the service hallway. Disappeared behind a blind corner. Then, nothing. No camera showed him leaving. Marco frowned. Impossible. One of the analysts enlarged another feed. A maintenance cart rolled through the hallway 2 minutes later, covered with fresh table linens. Marco's eyes narrowed. Play it back. Frame by frame. One gloved hand briefly appeared beneath the linens. The stranger had hidden inside the cart. Clever. Very clever. Marco immediately sent the image to every security team. Find him. Meanwhile, Sophia finally sat down. For the first time in nearly 12 hours, her legs ached. Her mind refused to slow down. She replayed every movement she had made in the kitchen. Every plate, every ingredient, every person who had come near the desserts. Adrian quietly approached. You've been blaming yourself. She looked up. I almost served it. You didn't. I almost did. You didn't. His voice remained steady. You noticed. You stopped it. You saved someone. Sophia looked away. I don't even know who. Does it matter? She thought about that, then slowly shook her head. No, it doesn't. A small smile touched Adrian's face. I thought so. Across the ballroom, the elderly judge sat beside his granddaughter, who happily finished a replacement dessert prepared under Sophia's direct supervision. The little girl waved toward the kitchen. Can I thank the chef? The judge smiled. Of course. A few minutes later, Sophia knelt beside their table. Did you like it? The little girl nodded enthusiastically. It tastes like sunshine. Sophia laughed. I've never heard anyone describe dessert that way. The child grinned. I think sunshine would taste sweet. The judge stood slowly. I've spent 40 years in the legal profession. I've met brilliant people. I've met powerful people. He paused. Tonight, I met someone brave. Sophia lowered her eyes. I only did my job. No. He smiled warmly. You did what was right. Those are not always the same thing. His words stayed with Adrian long after they left the table. Near midnight, the gala finally ended. Guests departed safely. Reporters never learned how close the evening had come to disaster. Exactly as Adrian intended. Outside, rain had stopped. Sophia stepped into the cool night air. She inhaled deeply. The city suddenly felt very quiet. Behind her, Adrian exited the hotel. Marco remained several steps back, speaking into an earpiece. Sophia turned. I never thanked you. For what? You believed me. Adrian slipped his hands into his coat pockets. You gave me no reason not to. She smiled softly. Most people need evidence. You noticed something others couldn't. That was evidence. She studied him for a moment. You trust your instincts. So do you. Their eyes met. For the briefest second, neither looked away. Then Marco approached. His expression had changed. Sir, Adrian immediately recognized the look. What is it? We identified the intended victim. Sophia looked toward him. Who? Marco hesitated. The poisoned dessert wasn't assigned to Mr. Moretti. It wasn't? No. Marco looked down at his tablet. It was scheduled for... He stopped. His expression darkened. What? Sophia asked. Marco slowly turned the screen around. The seating chart displayed one highlighted chair. Table 4. Seat 3. Reserved for Judge Harold Whitmore, the elderly man who had attended with his granddaughter. Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. He would have died. Marco nodded grimly. Yes. Adrian's expression remained unreadable, but something in his eyes hardened. This had never been an attack on him. Someone had tried to assassinate one of the country's most respected judges, and Sophia had unknowingly stopped it. Elsewhere, inside an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the harbor, the man in the stolen catering uniform removed his gloves. Another figure waited in the darkness. You failed. The man lowered his head. I underestimated the chef. The older man slowly stepped into the light. Elegant suit, silver hair, cold eyes. He picked up one of Sophia's photographs from the table. So, he murmured, she noticed the poison. Yes. And Adrian Moretti noticed her. Yes. The older man smiled. Not with amusement. With calculation. Excellent. The assassin frowned. We failed. No. The older man pinned another photograph beside Sophia's. This one showed Adrian leaving the hotel. A red line connected the two images. We accomplished something far more valuable. He looked at Sophia's smiling face. Now I know exactly where to strike. He picked up a lighter. The seating chart for the gala burned to ash. Only the photographs remained untouched. The older man whispered one final sentence before walking back into the shadows. From now on, the chef is part of the game. The words lingered in the darkness long after the old man disappeared. From now on, the chef is part of the game. The assassin remained alone in the warehouse. For the first time in years, he felt something that resembled guilt. He had poisoned politicians, business rivals, crime bosses, people whose names filled newspaper headlines. Never an innocent woman. He looked once more at Sophia's photograph, then quietly slipped it into his jacket instead of leaving it behind. He didn't know why. Perhaps he wasn't as empty as he had spent years pretending to be. Sunday morning arrived wrapped in golden sunlight. For Sophia, Sundays had always meant one thing: the youth shelter. She never missed it. No matter how exhausted she felt, no matter how difficult the week had been. She believed children deserved at least one place where they were never judged. And if that place happened to smell like fresh bread, even better. The shelter buzzed with laughter. Flour dust floated through the warm kitchen. Small hands clumsily rolled cookie dough into shapes that barely resembled circles. Sophia laughed. I said cookies. One little boy proudly held up something shaped like a dinosaur. It is a cookie. She examined it seriously. You know, I think you're right. The children erupted into laughter. Across the street, a black SUV remained parked beneath a large oak tree. Marco lowered a pair of binoculars. You were right. Adrian stood beside the vehicle. About what? She really does volunteer. Adrian watched through the windshield. Sophia wasn't teaching recipes. She was teaching confidence. Every child who burned something, she praised for trying. Every child who made a mess, she handed another spoon. No raised voices, no impatience. Only encouragement. Marco quietly smiled. Most people are kind when someone's watching. He glanced toward Sophia. She behaves exactly the same when she thinks no one is. Adrian said nothing. But he stayed. Inside the shelter, a little girl tugged gently on Sophia's apron. Miss Sophia? Yes? Why do you always smile? Sophia paused, then crouched beside her. I don't always. You do here. Sophia looked around the room. The children were laughing over flour-covered aprons. Someone had accidentally dropped an entire bowl of chocolate chips. Two boys were arguing over whose cookie looked more like a turtle. She smiled. I smile here, because all of you remind me that tomorrow can always be better. The little girl thought about that, then nodded with complete confidence. I'm going to smile tomorrow too. Sophia gently tapped her nose. I think that's an excellent plan. Outside, Marco's phone vibrated. He answered quietly. What is it? One of Moretti's analysts spoke urgently. We've identified the poison supplier. Marco's expression sharpened. Name. There was a brief silence. Then, Leon Varga. Marco looked immediately toward Adrian. Adrian's face remained calm. Only his eyes changed. Leon Varga, one of the most elusive contract killers operating across Europe. A ghost. A man whose name rarely appeared in official files because witnesses almost never survived long enough to identify him. Marco lowered his voice. If Varga accepted the contract, someone paid an extraordinary amount of money. Adrian looked back toward the shelter, where Sophia was helping a child frost cupcakes. They'll try again. The shelter closed late that afternoon. Sophia carried several leftover loaves of bread toward her car. Well, her bicycle. A faded blue bicycle, with one squeaky pedal, and a basket tied together with zip ties. She loved it anyway. One of the volunteers laughed. You still refuse to replace that thing? Sophia patted the handlebars affectionately. It still gets me home. It barely gets you downhill. It has personality. The volunteer shook his head. I think you're impossible. I've been called worse. They both laughed. As Sophia rode away, she never noticed another bicycle quietly following several blocks behind. The rider wore an ordinary gray hoodie. Nothing about him stood out. That was precisely the point. Halfway home, Sophia stopped at a neighborhood grocery store. She carefully compared prices before choosing vegetables. Store-brand pasta, discount rice. Fresh herbs were still too expensive, so she bought seeds instead. The cashier smiled. You always buy seeds. Sophia nodded. They become dinner eventually. The cashier chuckled. You really are a chef. She smiled. I'm trying. Outside, the cyclist remained across the street, watching, waiting, not approaching. His hand rested inside his jacket, on a silenced pistol. He observed the rhythm of the sidewalk. Families, children, an elderly couple. Too many witnesses. Not here. He quietly mounted the bicycle again. Elsewhere, Marco's surveillance team noticed him. Target acquired. The message reached Marco instantly. He looked toward Adrian. Gray hoodie. Bicycle. Possible Varga. Adrian opened the live camera feed. The cyclist remained patient, professional, never once looking directly at Sophia. Exactly the behavior of someone highly trained. Marco asked, Do we intercept? Adrian watched another few seconds. No. Marco frowned. We'll lose him. Not if he believes no one has seen him. Marco immediately understood. Shadow only. No contact. The operation began. 3 unmarked vehicles. 2 motorcycle units. 1 pedestrian surveillance team. None close enough to alert the assassin. Sophia continued riding home without the slightest idea that half a dozen professionals had quietly turned her ordinary afternoon into a protective convoy. She stopped once more. This time, at a small flower stand. The elderly florist smiled warmly. Sunflowers again? Sophia nodded. My mother's favorite. The florist selected the brightest bouquet. You deserve these. I have to pay. You already did. When? By making my granddaughter smile last month. Sophia laughed softly. I only taught her to bake. And now she smiles. The florist refused to accept a single dollar. Sophia finally surrendered. Thank you. Across the street, the cyclist watched the exchange. His expression remained unreadable. He quietly reached into his pocket, pulled out Sophia's photograph, compared it to the woman buying flowers, then slowly put it away again. His finger never left the trigger inside his jacket. But he didn't fire. Instead, he whispered something almost too quietly to hear. Not today. That evening, Sophia arrived home. Her mother smiled the moment she saw the sunflowers. You remembered. I always remember. They spent the evening cooking together. Well, Sophia cooked. Her mother supervised from a chair, insisting the soup needed a little more pepper. It already has pepper. It needs grandmother pepper. Sophia laughed. I don't think that's an ingredient. It should be. The apartment filled with warmth. Simple. Peaceful. The kind of evening people rarely appreciated until life became complicated. Across the city, Leon Varga entered the abandoned warehouse. The older man was already waiting. You had a clear shot. I did. And I didn't take it. The room fell silent. The older man's eyes narrowed. You've never refused a contract, Leon answered evenly. I haven't refused. I postponed. Why? Leon removed Sophia's photograph from his jacket and placed it on the table. I don't kill people who spend their Sundays teaching orphans to bake cookies. The older man's expression darkened. You've grown sentimental. No. Leon met his gaze without hesitation. I've grown selective. The older man laughed once, coldly. You don't choose your targets. I do now. Silence stretched between them. Then, the older man calmly reached into a drawer. He removed another folder. Thicker, heavier. He slid it across the table. Leon frowned. What's this? Your replacement. Leon slowly opened the folder. Inside were photographs of another assassin. A younger man, more reckless, more violent, far less patient. Beneath the photographs lay one simple instruction. Target, Sophia Bennett. Authorization, immediate. Leon looked up. The older man smiled without warmth. If you won't do it, someone else will. Miles away, Sophia stood on her apartment balcony, watering a small pot of basil. She looked up at the evening sky and smiled peacefully. She had no idea that somewhere in the same city, a stranger had just been hired to end her life. The basil leaves glistened beneath the evening light. Sophia smiled as she brushed her fingertips across them. They're finally growing. Behind her, her mother laughed from the kitchen. They take after you. Sophia looked over her shoulder. What does that mean? They're stubborn. Sophia grinned. I prefer determined. That's exactly what a stubborn person would say. Both women laughed. For a brief moment, the world felt wonderfully ordinary. Neither of them noticed the black sedan parked across the street. Its windows were too dark to see inside. But someone was watching the apartment. Not Leon Varga. Someone new. The following morning, Luna Bianca was already buzzing before sunrise. The publicity from the charity gala had spread faster than anyone expected. Reservations were booked 3 months in advance. Food critics who had ignored the restaurant only weeks earlier were suddenly requesting interviews. The owner stared at the reservation screen in disbelief. We're full. One of the waiters laughed. For Friday? For every Friday. Sophia walked in, carrying a crate of fresh vegetables. What happened? The owner pointed helplessly at the computer. I think you happened. She smiled awkwardly. It wasn't just me. No. He looked around the kitchen. It never is. That was another reason everyone respected her. Whenever praise arrived, she shared it. Whenever blame arrived, she carried it herself. As the morning prep began, a delivery driver entered through the back door with a large wooden crate. Special delivery. The kitchen manager frowned. We didn't order anything. The driver checked his paperwork. Chef Sophia Bennett. She wiped her hands on her apron. I'm Sophia. He handed her a clipboard. Please sign. The crate was beautifully crafted from polished oak. A silk ribbon wrapped around it. No company logo. No return address. The entire kitchen gathered around as Sophia carefully untied the ribbon. Inside sat a complete professional knife set. Hand-forged steel, ebony handles, perfectly balanced. Every chef in the room immediately recognized their value. One sous chef whispered, "Those cost more than my car." Another cook simply stared. "They're beautiful." Sophia reached beneath the knives. A handwritten card rested inside. Only one sentence. For the hands that remind people why food matters. No signature. No name. The owner smiled knowingly. I have a feeling I know who sent them. Sophia looked up. I don't. You really don't? She honestly shook her head. The owner laughed softly. Then whoever sent them understands you. Across town, Marco placed an identical card on Adrian's desk. The knives arrived. Adrian nodded without looking up from a shipping contract. Good. Marco folded his arms. You spent 6 months trying to locate that craftsman in northern Italy. I did. And then anonymously gave the set away. Yes. Marco smiled. You know she'll never know it was you. I know. Doesn't that bother you? Adrian finally looked up. If gratitude is expected, it isn't generosity. Marco chuckled. I keep forgetting who I'm talking to. No, Adrian replied quietly. You keep remembering. Late that afternoon, Leon Varga sat alone inside a quiet cafe overlooking the river. Across from him sat the younger assassin. His name was Damien Cross. Barely 30. Expensively dressed. Cold blue eyes. The confidence of a man who had never experienced failure. Damien stirred his espresso. So, the famous Leon Varga refuses a contract. Leon didn't react. Damien smirked. I never thought I'd live to see the day. Leon calmly sipped his coffee. You talk too much. I usually do. Damien leaned back. Tell me about the woman. Leon remained silent. Is she protected? Yes. By Moretti? Leon nodded once. Damien smiled wider. Even better. Leon finally met his gaze. Walk away. Damien laughed. From the biggest contract of the decade? No. Leon spoke with unusual seriousness. From Adrian Moretti. The laughter slowly faded. You've worked around him. I have. And? Leon set his cup down. I've watched governments underestimate him. I've watched crime families disappear after provoking him. He leaned slightly forward. If Moretti decides you're a problem, you won't know you're losing until everything around you is already gone. Damien shrugged. I'll take my chances. Leon sighed quietly. You already are. Back at Luna Bianca, dinner service was beginning when a familiar little girl entered the restaurant with her parents. The same child who had drawn Sophia after the night of the ridicule. She ran toward the open kitchen. Miss Chef! Sophia laughed. You came back. I brought something. The little girl proudly handed her another drawing. This one showed Sophia wearing a superhero cape while holding a frying pan like a shield. Standing beside her was a tall man in a black suit. The little girl pointed. That's your friend. Sophia smiled. I think he'd be surprised to hear that. Friends protect people. The child answered with absolute certainty. He protected you. Sophia carefully folded the drawing. I'll treasure this. You have to. It's magic. Sophia played along. Really? The little girl nodded vigorously. It keeps bad people away. The adults nearby smiled at the innocent conversation. Only one person in the restaurant didn't. Near the front window. Damien Cross quietly watched the exchange through dark sunglasses. He wasn't looking at Sophia. He was studying exits, security cameras, body language. He smiled. Moretti's people were here, invisible, professional, exactly as Leon had warned. Damien enjoyed difficult puzzles. Outside, Marco noticed him first. Not because Damien made a mistake, because Marco had spent 20 years noticing people who didn't belong. He spoke softly into his earpiece. Gray jacket, front window, possible surveillance. 3 agents adjusted their positions without attracting attention. Damien immediately sensed it. His smile grew. They're good. He stood, paid for a coffee he hadn't touched. Walked away at an ordinary pace. By the time Moretti's surveillance team reached the sidewalk, he had vanished into the evening crowd. Marco disliked opponents who disappeared that easily. That night, Sophia stayed late experimenting with a new dessert. Everyone else had gone home. Only the hum of refrigerators remained. She tasted a spoonful. Too sweet. She reached for another ingredient. At that exact moment, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the entire restaurant went dark. Complete silence. Sophia frowned. Power outage? She reached into a drawer for her phone. The flashlight illuminated only a narrow circle ahead of her. The emergency backup lights should have activated. They didn't. A strange feeling settled over her. The restaurant suddenly felt occupied. Hello? No answer. Only the distant drip of water somewhere in the darkness. She slowly walked toward the electrical room. Halfway there, she heard footsteps. Not hers. Another pair. Measured. Unhurried. Moving somewhere behind her. Sophia stopped walking. The footsteps stopped too. Her heartbeat quickened. Is someone there? Silence. Then, one single clap. Slow. Deliberate. Echoing through the dark restaurant. Sophia instinctively stepped backward. Her phone flashlight swept across empty tables. Nothing. Then, a voice emerged from the darkness. Calm. Young. Almost amused. You really do have remarkable instincts. Sophia froze. Who are you? Another step. The outline of a man appeared at the edge of the flashlight's beam. Expensive suit. Perfect posture. Hands casually in his pockets. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Sophia's grip tightened around her phone. What do you want? The stranger smiled. I only came... He took another slow step forward. To see what kind of woman made Adrian Moretti change his routine. Before Sophia could answer, the restaurant's front door exploded inward. The lights flashed back to life. Marco and 4 security agents rushed inside with weapons drawn. Don't move. But the stranger was already gone. The rear emergency exit swung gently in the night breeze. Only one thing remained behind. A single white chess piece. The king. Marco picked it up. His expression turned grim. He recognized the message immediately. This wasn't a random threat. It was a declaration. Someone had just challenged Adrian Moretti to a game. The white chess piece sat in Marco's palm. A small object, almost meaningless. Yet everyone in the restaurant understood what it represented. A warning, a message, a challenge. Sophia stared at the piece. Why would someone leave that? Nobody answered immediately, because the truth was obvious. Someone wanted Adrian to know. Someone wanted him to react. Adrian arrived 15 minutes later. He didn't rush. He never did. But everyone who knew him recognized the difference between calm and controlled anger. Tonight, it was the second one. He entered Luna Bianca, wearing the same dark coat he had worn earlier. Rain droplets still clung to his shoulders. His eyes immediately found Sophia. Are you hurt? She shook her head. No. He looked at her hands. Did he touch you? No. Only then did Adrian allow himself to look away. Marco handed him the chess piece. Adrian stared at it silently. The restaurant seemed colder. Damien cross. Sophia looked at him. You know him? Adrian placed the chess piece on the table. Unfortunately, Marco studied Adrian carefully. He wants attention. No. Adrian's voice was quiet. He wants control. Same thing? No. Adrian looked toward the empty doorway. People who want attention create noise. People who want control create fear. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. She hated that this was happening. Not because she was afraid, because she understood something. Her life had changed. Before Adrian Moretti walked into Luna Bianca, her biggest worries were bills, her mother's medication, whether the restaurant would survive. Now, someone had broken into her workplace because of him. She looked at Adrian. Am I the reason this is happening? The question stopped him. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Adrian stepped closer. No. Sophia looked away. But, no. His voice became firmer. The person responsible is the person who chose to hurt innocent people. Not you. You didn't ask for this. You didn't create this. She whispered. But it followed me. Adrian's expression softened slightly. Then I'll make sure it doesn't reach you. Those words should have comforted her. Instead, they frightened her, because she believed him. And that meant she understood how dangerous his world really was. The next morning, Sophia woke up to find 3 black SUVs parked outside her apartment. She stared from the window. Absolutely not. Her mother looked over. What happened? Nothing. That many cars usually means something happened. Sophia sighed. Their security. Evelyn blinked. Security? For me. Her mother was silent for a moment, then smiled. Interesting. Sophia narrowed her eyes. Mom. What? You sound happy. I am. Why? Evelyn looked innocent. My daughter finally has someone worried about her. Sophia shook her head. It's complicated. Most important things are. Sophia grabbed her coat. I'll be back later. Where are you going? To tell Adrian Moretti that I don't need a private army following me. Her mother smiled. Good luck. Why? Because you are about to argue with a man who controls half the city. Sophia opened the door. And? Evelyn laughed. And I have never met a person more stubborn than you. Adrian's headquarters occupied the top floors of a glass tower overlooking the city. Sophia felt completely out of place the moment she entered. People in expensive suits moved quickly. Security systems covered every entrance. Everyone seemed to know Adrian Moretti. Nobody seemed to know her. She approached reception. I need to see Adrian. The receptionist immediately stood. Do you have an appointment? No. The receptionist hesitated. Mr. Moretti is extremely busy. Sophia nodded. I know. Still, I'm not leaving until I speak with him. The receptionist stared. Not because Sophia was rude, because she said it with absolute certainty. 10 minutes later, Adrian's office door opened. Let her in. Sophia walked inside. The office was exactly what she expected. Modern, minimal, cold, except Adrian himself. He stood near the window looking over the city. You shouldn't be here. She crossed her arms. Good morning to you too. A small hint of amusement appeared. Good morning. I need to talk. I assumed. Sophia looked around. You put guards outside my home. Yes. You put guards around my restaurant. Yes. You are following me. Yes. She stared. Do you hear yourself? Often, despite herself. She almost smiled. Almost. Then she became serious. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't live like a prisoner. Adrian turned toward her. I know. Do you? Yes. Then why? Because his answer came instantly. Because someone tried to kill an innocent person because of a connection to me. Sophia softened. That wasn't my fault. I know. Then stop treating me like it was. That sentence hit harder than she intended. Adrian looked away briefly. A rare sign. Not anger. Reflection. Finally, he nodded. You're right. Sophia blinked. She had expected an argument, not agreement. What? You are right. I don't need protection that makes me powerless. He walked toward his desk. One condition. She frowned. What? Training. Training. Basic awareness. Self-defense. Emergency procedures. Sophia laughed softly. I cook for a living. So? So my greatest weapon is a wooden spoon. Adrian's expression remained serious. I believe you. That made her laugh harder. For the first time in days, Adrian smiled too. The moment lasted only seconds. Then his phone rang. He answered. Yes? Marco's voice came through. Sir. The tone immediately changed the room. What happened? We found Damien Cross. Sophia became quiet. Where? Marco hesitated. Not where we expected. Explain. He wasn't running. A pause. He was waiting. Adrian's expression hardened. Location. Old St. Mary's Cathedral. Sophia looked confused. A church? Marco continued. There's more. What? The reason he stayed. Silence. Then Marco said the words that changed everything. He wants to talk. Adrian narrowed his eyes. Damien Cross doesn't talk. No. Marco's voice lowered. He confesses. 30 minutes later, Adrian, Marco, and Sophia arrived at the abandoned cathedral. Sophia had insisted on coming. Adrian objected. She ignored him. Neither of them mentioned how familiar that had become. Inside, dust covered the old wooden benches. Sunlight entered through cracked, stained glass windows. At the altar stood Damien Cross. No weapon visible, no escape route prepared, just waiting. Adrian stopped several meters away. You have 5 minutes. Damien smiled faintly, still impatient, still alive. Damien looked at Sophia, then back at Adrian. She's the reason. Sophia frowned. The reason for what? Damien reached inside his coat slowly. Marco immediately moved, but Damien only removed an old photograph. He held it out. Adrian's expression changed the instant he saw it. Because the photograph wasn't of Sophia. It wasn't of Damien. It was of a woman. A woman Adrian had not seen in 20 years. Sophia noticed his reaction. Who is she? Adrian didn't answer. Because for the first time, the most powerful man in the room looked genuinely shaken. Damien whispered, You don't remember her? Adrian stared at the photograph. His voice was barely audible. Impossible. Damien smiled sadly. That's what they wanted you to believe. He stepped closer. The woman in this photo is your mother. Silence. The entire cathedral seemed to stop breathing. Sophia looked at Adrian. She had never seen him speechless before. Damien continued. And she didn't die in the accident you were told about. Adrian's eyes darkened. Choose your next words carefully. Damien met his gaze. Your mother was murdered. The cathedral fell silent. And somewhere deep inside Adrian Moretti, a 20-year-old wound finally opened. The word hung in the air. Murdered. For 20 years, Adrian Moretti had lived with one version of the truth. A car accident. A rainy road. A tragic loss. A memory buried so deeply that even he rarely allowed himself to touch it. Now, a stranger stood in an abandoned cathedral, telling him everything he knew was a lie. Sophia watched Adrian carefully. She expected anger. She expected violence. She expected the cold, powerful man everyone feared to appear. But he didn't. He simply stood there, still, silent, almost human. Marco noticed first. Adrian's hands had tightened. Only slightly. Most people would never see it. Marco had known him for 12 years. He saw everything. Sir. Adrian raised one hand. Stop. No words. No movement. Just control. Damien Cross looked at him. You're wondering why I know. Adrian's voice was quiet. Yes. Because the same people who erased your mother's death are the same people who hired me. The cathedral seemed darker. Sophia stepped closer. Who? Damien looked toward the broken stained glass windows. The Bellissimo Group. Sophia froze. She recognized the name. The company that had offered her the executive chef position. The company that had seemed like a miracle opportunity. Her face changed. Adrian noticed immediately. You know them? Sophia slowly nodded. They offered me a job. Marco's expression hardened. When? 2 days before the gala. Adrian and Marco exchanged a glance. The timing. The connection. It was too precise. Damien continued. Bellissimo isn't just a luxury company. They're a front. For what? Adrian asked. Damien looked directly at him. For rebuilding an empire that your father destroyed. The silence afterward felt heavier than any accusation. Sophia looked at Adrian. Your father? Adrian said nothing. Damien smiled bitterly. Interesting. You don't know. Know what? How much of your own family history was rewritten? 20 years earlier, Adrian Moretti had been 19. Young, angry, and already surrounded by a world he didn't understand. His father, Carlo Moretti, had been a powerful man. A feared man. But unlike many others in that world, Carlo wanted out. He had spent years building an empire through ruthless decisions. Then one day, he decided the cost was too high. He wanted his son to have a different life. His wife supported him. Together, they planned to leave. They never got the chance. Adrian remembered the night, the phone call, the hospital, the empty expression on every adult's face. Everyone told him the same thing. It was an accident. But nobody ever explained why his father's enemies celebrated afterward. Nobody explained why certain people disappeared. Nobody explained why his mother's personal documents vanished. Back in the cathedral, Adrian finally spoke. Why tell me now? Damien looked at Sophia, then back at him. Because I was hired to kill her. Sophia went still. And you didn't. No. Why? Damien looked uncomfortable. A strange emotion crossed his face. Regret. I followed her. For days, I expected to find a weakness. Instead, I found someone who spent her life helping people who could give her nothing in return. Sophia looked away. She didn't know what to say. Damien continued. I realized something. The people who hired me, they were afraid of her. Sophia frowned. Me? Not because you are dangerous. Because you are proof. Proof of what? Damien looked at Adrian. That someone like you can still care. Adrian's expression hardened. Who hired you? Damien hesitated. Victor Bellissimo. Sophia's face changed. The man who offered her the resort position. The man connected to the poisoned dessert. The man behind the surveillance. Adrian's jaw tightened. Where is he? Protected. By who? Damien smiled slightly. The question isn't who protects him. The question is, who does he protect? Before Adrian could answer, a gunshot shattered the cathedral windows. Everyone dropped instantly. Marco pulled Sophia behind a stone pillar. Adrian moved in the opposite direction, toward the threat, not away from it. Another shot. Wood exploded from the old pew beside Damien. The assassin had been waiting. Marco shouted, Sniper! Adrian scanned the upper windows. Nothing. Too clean. Too professional. Damien immediately understood. They're here for me. Adrian looked at him. No. Another shot. The bullet struck the stone near Sophia. Adrian's eyes changed. They're here for everyone. The cathedral erupted into movement. Marco directed security teams outside. Adrian moved through the shadows. No panic. No wasted motion. He reached an old side corridor. The sniper wasn't there. A trap. He realized too late. A second attacker emerged behind him. Adrian turned instantly. The two men collided. No words. Only action. The attacker swung. Adrian blocked. Countered. The fight was fast and brutal. Years of survival instinct taking over. The attacker reached for a concealed blade. Adrian caught his wrist. Twisted. The weapon fell. One strike. The attacker collapsed. Adrian stood over him. But before he could question him, the man smiled. "You still don't understand." Adrian froze. "What?" The attacker coughed. "The chef isn't the target." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Then why go after her?" The man laughed weakly. "Because she is the key." Seconds later, the attacker swallowed a hidden capsule. Marco rushed in. "No!" Too late. The man was gone. No information. No answers. Only questions. Outside the cathedral, rain began falling again. Sophia stood beneath the shelter of the doorway. Adrian approached. For once, he looked uncertain. She noticed. "You're afraid." It wasn't a question. He looked at her. "I don't get afraid." She shook her head. "Everyone does." "No, everyone." She stepped closer. "You're afraid because you don't know who to trust." Silence. Because she was right. Adrian had spent his entire life knowing how to fight enemies. But now, the enemy had reached into his past, into his family, into the one place he thought was untouchable. Sophia looked at him. "Why me?" Adrian didn't answer immediately. Finally, "Because someone believes you matter." She frowned. "That doesn't explain anything." "No." His voice softened. "It explains everything." That night, Adrian returned to his office alone. On his desk, a package waited. No sender. No security alert. Impossible. He opened it carefully. Inside, a single envelope and an old photograph. The same photograph Damien had shown him, his mother. But now, there was something different. Written on the back, "She didn't die protecting you. She died protecting her daughter." Adrian froze, because beneath the message was another photograph, a hospital record, a newborn baby. Name, Sophia Bennett. Adrian stared. His breathing stopped. The impossible suddenly became possible. Sophia wasn't connected to his enemies because of him. She wasn't chosen randomly. She wasn't just a chef who happened to cross his path. She was connected to the past, to his mother, to the secret everyone had spent 20 years hiding. Adrian whispered one word, "Sophia." And for the first time in his life, the man who feared nothing was terrified of the truth. The photograph remained on Adrian's desk until sunrise. He didn't move it. He didn't touch it. He simply stared. A single image had shattered 2 decades of certainty. Sophia Bennett, a chef. A woman who had entered his life because of one meal. A woman who had laughed with children. A woman who had challenged him without fear. A woman who somehow appeared in a mystery that began before she was even born. The door opened quietly. Marco stepped inside. He immediately noticed Adrian had not slept. "You found something." Adrian pushed the photograph across the desk. Marco picked it up. His expression changed slowly. "Where did this come from?" "Someone left it." "Who?" "I don't know." Marco looked at the hospital record, then back at Adrian. "This could be fake." "I know." "But you believe it." Adrian looked toward the city outside. "I don't know what I believe anymore." That sentence disturbed Marco more than anything else, because Adrian Moretti had built his entire life around certainty. Every decision, every move, every enemy, calculated, controlled. But now, his own history had become the battlefield. Run every test, Adrian said quietly. DNA, records, everything. Marco nodded. And Sophia? Adrian looked at the photograph. His voice lowered. Don't tell her yet. Why? Because if this is true, he paused. She deserves to hear it from someone who knows the whole truth. Marco understood. For the first time, Adrian wasn't protecting information. He was protecting her. Across the city, Sophia woke up to find her mother sitting quietly at the kitchen table. Too quietly. That alone made Sophia nervous. Mom? Evelyn looked up. You look tired. I could say the same. Her mother smiled faintly. I had a strange dream. Sophia poured coffee. What kind? Evelyn looked down at her hands. About your father. The room became still. Sophia rarely talked about Daniel Bennett. Not because she didn't miss him. Because missing him hurt too much. Her father had been a gentleman. A history professor. A person who believed every problem could be solved if people simply told the truth. Then one night, he never came home. The official explanation had always been simple. An accident. A wrong turn. Bad weather. But Sophia had never fully believed it. Because her father had always been careful. Too careful. What about Dad? Evelyn hesitated. I think, she swallowed. I think there are things I never told you. Sophia sat down. What things? Her mother looked toward the window. When your father died, he wasn't working on a book. Sophia felt her heartbeat change. What do you mean? He was investigating something. What? Evelyn closed her eyes. A company. Bellissimo. The name landed like a stone. Sophia whispered. Bellissimo. Her mother nodded. Your father discovered they weren't what they appeared to be. Then why didn't he tell anyone? Because he thought someone was watching us. Sophia remembered the strange offer, the surveillance, the poisoned dessert, the stranger in the dark restaurant. Everything suddenly connected, or almost connected. Mom, who is Adrian Moretti? Evelyn looked at her sharply. Why are you asking? Because he knows things. About what? Sophia looked away. I don't know. Her mother studied her daughter's face, then quietly said, Stay away from him. Sophia froze. Why? Evelyn's voice trembled. Because your father was afraid of people connected to the Moretti family. The answer created more questions than it solved. At Moretti headquarters, the DNA results arrived before noon. Marco entered the office. Adrian immediately stood. Well? Marco didn't answer right away. That was enough. Adrian knew. What is it? Marco placed the report down. There's a match. Silence. Adrian stared at the document. Say it. Marco took a breath. Sophia Bennett is biologically related to your mother. The room went completely quiet. Adrian sat down slowly. For the first time in years, he looked like someone who didn't know what to do next. How? We don't know. Find out. We will. Adrian looked at the photograph again. She doesn't know. No. Her whole life has been built on a lie. Marco nodded. Like yours. That afternoon, Sophia arrived at Luna Bianca. But the restaurant felt different. Not because anything had changed. Because she had. Every familiar corner suddenly felt connected to something bigger. The kitchen. The tables. The place where Adrian first tasted her food. She wondered if that moment had truly been coincidence, or if someone had arranged it. The owner noticed her silence. You okay? She forced a smile. Just thinking. That's dangerous. She laughed softly. Why? Because chefs who think too much change recipes. She smiled. Maybe recipes need changing. Before she could continue, a black car stopped outside. Adrian stepped out. Sophia immediately knew something was wrong. Not because he looked angry, because he looked uncertain. She had never seen that before. He entered the restaurant. They looked at each other. Neither spoke. Finally, Sophia said, "What happened?" Adrian glanced around. "Can we talk somewhere private?" The seriousness in his voice made her nervous. They walked into the empty dining room. Adrian remained standing. Sophia noticed. "You always stand when you're uncomfortable." He looked surprised. "You noticed?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you think nobody notices you." A faint sadness crossed his face. She was right. Adrian placed a folder on the table. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." She opened the folder. Inside, her father's name, old documents, photographs, and the DNA report. Her hands stopped moving. "What is this?" Adrian took a breath. "A truth someone buried." She looked at him. "What does my father have to do with you?" Adrian remained silent for a moment, then answered. "More than either of us knew," he explained. "Not everything, not yet, but enough. Her father's investigation, the Bellissimo connection, the missing years. The possibility that their families were connected long before they met." Sophia listened without interrupting. Until one sentence. "My mother knew your father." She looked up. "What?" Adrian nodded. "They knew each other." Sophia stepped back. "No." "Sophia, no." Her voice shook. "My father would have told me. Maybe he wanted to." "Then why didn't he?" Silence. "Because neither of them knew." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Not because she was weak, because every memory she had trusted was suddenly uncertain. "My whole life," she whispered. "What else don't I know?" Adrian stepped closer. "That's what I'm trying to find out." She looked at him. "Why?" The question was simple, but it carried everything. Why did he care? Why protect her? Why risk his empire? Adrian answered quietly. "Because someone has spent 20 years trying to erase the truth. And now," he looked at her, "they're trying to erase you." Before Sophia could respond, the restaurant lights flickered. Once, twice, then the front windows shattered. Everyone dropped. Marco's security team reacted instantly. Sophia was pulled behind cover. Adrian moved toward the entrance. Outside, a car accelerated away. Inside the broken window, a small package rested on the floor. Marco approached carefully. "Don't touch it." He examined the label. No name, only one message, written in black ink. "Ask her about the night she was born." Sophia stared at the words. Her face slowly lost color, because there was one thing she had never questioned. One memory her mother had always protected. The night she was born. She whispered, "Why would they say that?" No one answered. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She looked at Adrian. He nodded. "Answer it." Sophia pressed the phone to her ear. A woman's voice spoke softly. Old, tired, familiar. "Hello, Sophia." Her breath stopped, because she knew that voice. She had heard it every day of her life. It was her mother's voice, but younger, recorded. The message continued. "If you are hearing this, it means they found you." The recording continued. A younger version of Evelyn Bennett's voice filled the silent restaurant. Soft, shaking, terrified, yet somehow still determined. "Sophia, if you are hearing this, it means they found you." Sophia couldn't breathe. She held the phone tightly against her ear. The entire world seemed to disappear. No broken glass. No security agents. No Adrian standing only a few feet away. Only her mother's voice. A voice from a time before she remembered. "I prayed this day would never come, but I also knew hiding the truth forever was impossible." Sophia looked at Adrian. He didn't move. He understood. This moment belonged to her. Not him. Not his questions. Not his past. Hers. The recording continued. Your father and I made a choice 29 years ago. A choice to protect you. Sophia's eyes widened. 29 years. She looked at Adrian. He noticed too. The number meant something. The recording continued. Your real name was never supposed to be Sophia Bennett. Silence. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Her knees weakened. Adrian moved instantly. He caught her before she fell. For a moment, the strongest woman he knew looked completely lost. What does that mean? Sophia whispered. Nobody answered. Because nobody knew. The recording continued. Your father believed the Moretti family was in danger. He believed someone wanted to destroy everything Carlo Moretti had built. When Adrian was 19, Sophia looked up sharply. Adrian froze. His name, in her mother's recording. Carlo's wife protected you. She protected both of our families. Adrian's expression changed. His mother, the woman he had lost, the woman whose death he had never understood. The recording continued. Sophia, the woman you called Aunt Maria, was not your aunt. Sophia covered her mouth. A memory surfaced. A woman from childhood. Warm eyes. A gentle smile. Someone who visited every year on her birthday. Someone her mother always introduced as an old family friend. The recording continued. She was Adrian Moretti's mother. The room became completely silent. Sophia slowly looked at Adrian. He looked back. Neither spoke. Because suddenly, everything changed. The connection wasn't business. It wasn't coincidence. It was family. The recording continued. Carlo and Maria Moretti discovered the truth about Bellissimo. They found evidence. Evidence that could destroy powerful people. They wanted to expose them, but someone inside their own circle betrayed them. Sophia whispered, "Who?" The recording did not answer. Instead, your father took the evidence and disappeared. He wanted to keep it away from them. But he knew they would come. Adrian's voice finally broke the silence. Where is the evidence? Sophia looked at him. I don't know. The recording continued. Sophia, if Adrian is with you when you hear this. Evelyn's younger voice trembled. Trust him. Adrian closed his eyes. For years, he had believed everyone close to him eventually betrayed him. Now, a woman who had been dead for decades was asking someone to trust him. The recording ended. No goodbye. No explanation. Only silence. Sophia slowly lowered the phone. My mother knew. Adrian nodded. Yes. She knew all along. Yes. Why didn't she tell me? Neither of them had an answer. And that hurt more. Hours passed. The restaurant closed. The investigation continued. But Sophia sat alone at a table, staring at nothing. Adrian remained nearby, not forcing conversation, not offering empty comfort, just there. Eventually, she spoke. I thought I knew my life. Adrian looked at her. I thought I knew who my parents were. She swallowed. I thought my biggest problem was convincing people that I belonged in a kitchen. A small, painful smile appeared. Turns out, I was part of some 20-year-old war. Adrian sat across from her. I am sorry. Sophia looked at him. For what? For bringing this into your life. She shook her head. You didn't. I did. No. Her voice became stronger. My whole life existed before you. Whatever this is. She pointed toward the documents. It started before I knew your name. Adrian looked at her. And for the first time, he saw not someone to protect, but someone standing beside him. A partner. Meanwhile, at an unknown location, Victor Bellissimo watched the security footage from Luna Bianca. Sophia listening to the recording. Adrian standing beside her. His expression remained calm, but his hand tightened around the glass in his hand. They found the message. His assistant nodded. Yes, and the girl knows. Not everything. Victor smiled faintly. Good. The assistant looked confused. Good? Secrets are dangerous when hidden, but they are even more dangerous when partially revealed. He walked toward the window. Now they will search. And searching creates mistakes. The assistant hesitated. Should we eliminate her? Victor looked back. No, not yet. Why? Victor smiled. Because Sophia Bennett is the only person alive who can open what Daniel Carter hid. Back at Moretti headquarters, Marco entered Adrian's office. We found something. Adrian looked up. What? The recording came from an old storage device. Tracked? Yes. And Marco placed a folder down. It originated from a hospital. Adrian frowned. Which hospital? Marco hesitated. The same hospital where Sophia was born. Adrian opened the folder. Inside was an old patient file, but the name had been removed. Only one thing remained, a handwritten note. Written by Maria Moretti. Protect the child. She is the last piece. Sophia arrived moments later. She read the note. Her face changed. The last piece? Marco nodded. We think your father hid something. Something important. Sophia looked at Adrian. What? Adrian stared at the note. Evidence. Against Bellissimo. Something they have spent 29 years trying to find. Sophia whispered. Where did my father hide it? Nobody answered. Then, a memory struck her. A tiny detail. Something she hadn't thought about in years. My father had a habit. Everyone looked at her. When I was little, he always told me. She closed her eyes. If something was important, he put it where people would never think to look. Adrian leaned forward. Where? Sophia looked toward the window, a distant memory appearing in her mind. A place from childhood. A place she hadn't visited in years. My old home. Marco frowned. The house was demolished. Sophia shook her head slowly. No, it wasn't. Everyone thought it was. Her voice became quieter. But my father built a hidden room. At that exact moment, every light inside Moretti headquarters went out. The building fell into darkness. Security alarms screamed. Then, every screen in the office turned on. One image appeared, a photograph of Sophia's childhood home. Across the screen, 3 words appeared. Too late. Adrian stared, because whoever sent the message knew exactly where they were going next, and they were already waiting. The words on every screen burned through the darkness. Too late. For several seconds, nobody moved. The emergency lights flickered on, one by one. Red, cold, unforgiving. Sophia stared at the photograph of her childhood home, the place where she had spent the first years of her life, the place filled with memories, birthday cakes, her father's books, her mother's laughter, a place she believed belonged only to her past. Now, it had become the center of a war she never knew existed. Adrian walked toward the screen. His face was calm, but Sophia had learned something about him. The calmer he became, the more dangerous the situation was. Who sent this? Marco checked the system. His fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard. Unknown. Trace it. Already trying. A pause. Whoever did it bypassed every security layer. Adrian looked at him. Meaning? Marco exhaled. Meaning they wanted us to know they could. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. They're playing with us. Adrian looked at her. Yes. Why? He walked closer. Because fear makes people make mistakes. Sophia looked at the screen. And you don't? No. A brief silence. Then he added, not anymore. The old Adrian would have gone alone. The old Adrian would have destroyed every obstacle between himself and the truth. But this wasn't the old Adrian. Not anymore. He looked at Sophia. You're coming with us." She raised an eyebrow. "I thought your plan was to keep me away from danger." It was. And? It failed. Despite everything, she almost smiled. "At least you're honest." Within 30 minutes, the team prepared to leave. The destination: the abandoned Bennett family home. The house had supposedly been demolished years ago. The property records showed nothing remained. But Sophia knew better. Her father had always been careful. He was a man who believed secrets survived because people looked in obvious places. The journey took 40 minutes. The city disappeared behind them. Roads became narrower. Buildings became fewer. Finally, a forgotten neighborhood appeared. Old trees, cracked sidewalks, empty houses. The place looked abandoned by time itself. Sophia stared through the car window. "I haven't been here since I was 10. Adrian glanced at her. "What happened?" "My mother moved us away after my father died. She said there were too many memories." Sophia looked at the dark house ahead. "Now I wonder if she was hiding something." Adrian said nothing, because he understood. Sometimes people didn't hide things because they were guilty. Sometimes they hid things because they were afraid. The house stood exactly where Sophia remembered. Old, silent, waiting. Marco's team checked the area. No movement, no vehicles, no heat signatures. Adrian frowned. "That doesn't mean safe." Sophia looked at him. "You always expect the worst." "Yes. Doesn't that exhaust you?" A pause. Then, "Every day." The honesty surprised her. Not because he admitted fear, because he admitted exhaustion. The world saw Adrian Moretti as untouchable. Sophia saw something else. A man who had been carrying too much for too long. They entered the house. Dust covered everything. The old living room remained almost unchanged. Sophia touched the wall. "I remember this." "What?" "My father used to stand here and read." She smiled faintly. He always made different voices for different characters. Adrian watched her. "You miss him?" "Every day." She looked around. "Do you miss your mother?" The question caught him off guard. For a moment, the powerful man disappeared, leaving only a 19-year-old boy who lost his family. Every day. They continued searching. Old cabinets, floorboards, walls, nothing. Hours passed. Sophia became frustrated. He wouldn't hide something like this somewhere impossible. Adrian looked around. "What did he teach you?" She frowned. "What? Your father? What did he teach you about secrets?" Sophia thought. Then slowly, her eyes widened. "He said," she whispered, "secrets aren't hidden. They're protected." Adrian looked around. Protected how? Sophia walked toward the kitchen. Not the living room. Not the office. The kitchen. Her childhood kitchen. She opened an old drawer. Nothing. Another. Nothing. Then she stopped. The old wooden table. Her father's favorite place. She ran her fingers underneath it. Found something. A small carved symbol. A circle. With 2 initials. D.B. Daniel Bennett. Sophia pressed it. A click echoed. The entire kitchen floor shifted slightly. A hidden compartment opened. Inside, a metal box, covered in dust. Sophia stared. "I can't believe it." Adrian picked up the box carefully. "No." He looked at her. "You can. Your father wanted you to find it." Inside the box were documents. Photographs, encrypted files, and 1 handwritten letter. Sophia picked it up. Her father's handwriting. She immediately recognized it. Her hands began shaking. "Read it," Adrian said softly. She opened the letter. "My dearest Sophia." Her eyes filled. "If you are reading this, then I failed to keep you away from the truth." She continued. "I need you to know one thing. Everything I did, Every lie, every secret, was because I loved you. Sophia covered her mouth. The people searching for this evidence are not afraid of me. They are afraid of what you represent. Her eyes moved faster. You are proof that two families who were supposed to destroy each other chose to protect each other instead. Adrian stared. The meaning slowly became clear. Their families weren't enemies. They had been allies. The war had been manufactured. Sophia continued. Adrian Moretti. She stopped, looking at him, then read on. If you are with my daughter. Adrian froze. Then I know she is safe. A long silence followed. The letter was addressed to him, even though Daniel Bennett had died years before they met. The final paragraph shook both of them. The evidence you are looking for is not the most important thing. The most important thing is the truth. Bellissimo didn't destroy our families because we were weak. They destroyed us because together, we were stronger than them. Suddenly, a sound came from upstairs. Footsteps. Everyone turned. Marco immediately drew his weapon. Move. The team surrounded Sophia and Adrian. The footsteps continued. Slow, deliberate. Someone wanted them to hear. A figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Sophia froze, because she recognized him. Leon Vargas stood above them, hands empty, no weapon. Adrian immediately stepped forward. You followed us. No. Leon looked around the old house. I was waiting. Marco aimed his weapon. You expect us to believe that? Leon ignored him. His eyes moved to Sophia. I'm sorry. She frowned. For what? For not telling you sooner. About what? Leon slowly walked down the stairs. The truth about your father. Sophia's expression changed. What do you know? Leon stopped. I was there the night he died. Silence. Adrian's entire body became still. What? Leon looked at him. I know who killed him. And I know who killed your mother. The room went silent. Sophia whispered. Who? Leon looked toward the hidden documents, then toward the darkness outside. His answer was almost impossible to hear. The person you trust the most. Everyone froze. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Explain. Leon shook his head. Not here. Why? Because... A distant explosion interrupted him. The house shook. Glass shattered. Smoke filled the hallway. Someone had attacked the house. Marco shouted, Everyone down! Chaos erupted. Sophia was pulled behind cover. Adrian moved toward her instantly. Not toward the exit. Not toward the enemy. Toward her. When the smoke cleared, Leon was gone. The metal box was gone. And on the floor, a single photograph remained. Adrian picked it up. His face changed. Sophia saw it. What is it? He slowly turned the photograph around. It showed 4 people. Carlo Moretti, Maria Moretti, Daniel Bennett, and a 4th person. Someone standing beside them. Someone smiling. Someone Sophia knew very well. Adrian whispered, No. Sophia looked at the photograph. Her heart stopped, because the 4th person was her mother, and written on the back of the photograph were 6 words. The betrayal came from inside. The truth had finally been uncovered, but the greatest mystery had just begun.